Hey, deserving listeners, the Ultimatum. Let's check it out.
Rough night. I knew Lexi was gonna be there, but I didn't realize, like, she was gonna get her people on her side. Okay, this is like what she said, okay? And it shocked me. She said, you were bragging about how I was inside of you, to her.
Okay.
Can you believe that?
Okay, so we didn't see that bit, I don't think. And who knows if Vanessa is correct in that. But Vanessa just said that Lexi was saying, that Ray was bragging about having sex with Vanessa. And that makes that whole thing with Lexi and Vanessa at that dinner place even more confusing. Because if Ray was bragging about it, well, it makes less sense regarding the verbatim what Lexi was saying, but absolutely makes sense regarding what I think is actually happening, which is that Lexi is sad and threatened and is worried she's going to lose Ray and is transforming it into some sort of triangulated attack on Vanessa. So that's interesting. Now, this whole time that Lexi's been attacking Vanessa, I have had this question as to, well, it all depends on Ray. Because if Ray is cool with everything, knowing where Vanessa stands, then Lexi doesn't have a leg to stand on. But if Ray feels tricked or lied to or deceived, then I would understand where Lexi is coming from. So maybe we'll hear from Ray how she felt about having sex with Vanessa.
I can't imagine myself bragging to that.
You put your fingers inside of Ray. She kept saying that we fucked. The way she said it was like vulgar, and I was like, that is not Ray.
Oh my God, I'm like literally so uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, they were like making me defend it, like.
Okay, so I'm a little worried because Vanessa, given her issues, might dominate the conversation here, and Ray, given her issues, might not say much, which is already happening. So I'm a little worried that we're not gonna get any indication as to how Ray feels about what happened.
But why did you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. And they weren't like taking that as an answer. And what more of an answer can I give? It didn't mean anything. We don't have this romantic us or like whatever connection. And then they apparently somehow thought that was worse.
We did what we did. Like, yeah. I wasn't pressured. I'm accountable for it.
Oh, thank God. Okay. It all hinged on that. So for Ray being explicit, which I'm glad Ray interprets that because that is seemingly what's at stake here, that Ray was coerced or tricked or something, and Ray is now saying, no, I did it. Let's rewind that, because that whole thing with Lexi yelling at and Yoli chiming in, I'm like, am I missing something?
Romantic us or like whatever connection. And then they apparently somehow thought that was worse.
We did what we did. Like,
yeah.
I wasn't pressured. I'm accountable for it.
Yeah.
We both are. It was consensual.
I was attacked.
Yeah, so what Lexi and Yoli might say, I guess, is that Vanessa, they were yelling at her about having had sex with Ray, even though, and Vanessa was wording it very poorly. But what Vanessa was saying was, there's no romantic or sexual attraction. But I think what Vanessa meant was, and I could just be trying to look on the bright side of things, but I think if Vanessa and Ray had time to think and really describe effectively, I think they would both say, look, we don't plan on being together after the trial marriage period of time. And we're not particularly, connected romantically or even sexually, but we were attracted to each other enough and like each other enough to have had some fun together in bed, and there was no coercion there. It's, that happens sometimes. And Yoli and Lexi were going after her saying, you don't have sex with your friends. And I'm like, well, some people do. As long as consensual adults are doing what they want to do, it's okay. It's like this weird moralistic argument that you can only have sex with people that you want to marry. Like that's not the way humans operate. Some people do, but certainly not everybody. So this premise I was suspicious of because Vanessa is honest to a fault. She will say things that will harm her, make her look bad. And so I suspected that Vanessa was overly talkative, if anything, about how she feels about Ray to Ray, and that when Ray and Vanessa had sex, that Ray absolutely knew that Vanessa wasn't into Ray or wasn't, on that path of trying to figure out whether or not she wants to marry Ray. Vanessa has been very honest and clear that she doesn't know if she ever wants to get married, which is totally fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, is it some sort of moralist? Because if you present a case like this to the general public, there will be this, there'll be three different camps that I observe from people. There'll be this camp of people that will be accepting of it, just be like, well, someone doesn't want to get married, that's okay, and someone wants to have casual sex, as long as it's consensual, it's fine. Then you have this other end of the spectrum, where they'll be like, that's wrong, that's immoral, that's disgusting, you have to, those are dirty people, they're floozies, they're sluts, they're promiscuous, that kind of thing. But then there's this middle group who think they're enlightened and think they have liberated themselves from the indoctrination that they went through in society and as a child, but they haven't really. And so they're in this middle zone where they will claim that they are progressive and sex positive, but they're not actually. And they'll use very sneaky language to convince themselves that they're sex positive and that they are not of the oppressor, but they're speaking for the oppressor. And there's this general anger at people who are doing things that are outside of tradition. Because if you just hear what Lexi is saying, the message is you can't have sex with someone casually. You must want to marry them in your heart to even engage with that person, hang out with that person. And you violated somebody by penetrating. A lot of talk about that from Lexi herself. No one else is being that graphic about it. And by doing that, you have committed some sort of moral sin or something. And as I said when they were fighting, I'm like, well, if Lexi knows that Ray was violated, feels violated, or coerced or tricked, then yeah, I wouldn't word it that way, but I get it. But clearly that's not the case. So what's the problem? Now, I want to be clear. Does Vanessa have issues? Yes. At the dinner when they're choosing, Vanessa said F you to Xander twice on camera. And the way it looked, it didn't look like there was any chance that there was a viable, understandable explanation as to why Xander would do that. And it was, or why Vanessa would do that. And there was a lot of other behaviors along those lines from Vanessa. So I'm not saying that Vanessa doesn't have problems, but at this point, Lexi's problems are front and center, seemingly. And I'm terrified because, like I said this before, at this point, a lot of people are on Lexi's side. I think Lexi had a strength to her in the early part of the season that was admirable, and a kind of charm to Lexi that I think was appealing to people, to the audience. And Vanessa has a lot of problematic aspects to her personality, seemingly, at least to her behavior. So I'm terrified that I'm not reading it right, or either way, I'll just get attacked online. I seriously am, So I'm really trying to figure out what's going on so that I'm not missing something.
We did what we did.
Yeah.
I wasn't pressured. I'm accountable for it.
Yeah.
We both are. It was consensual.
I was attacked from all ends. And I don't fucking know. It was awful, Ray.
Okay. Well, I'm really glad that Ray definitively stated. I guess there's a chance that Ray's just saying that. It didn't look made up. And we didn't hear much more from Ray. I always wish that they would try to pry more out of the people who don't talk. We've heard a lot from Vanessa. A lot hinges on the full breadth of Ray's experience. I just wish we would get that. Maybe Ray doesn't want to talk about that, but I just wish I knew more. But Ray did say definitively, so that is very helpful in terms of understanding what's happening.
Never figured Vanessa out if she ever would have slept with Ray.
What? Do you think that she's out to get you?
Yeah. Really don't like her.
That's interesting. So Mal, again, being a very good listener and asking good questions, asking Lexi, do you think Vanessa's out to get you? And I would have thought Lexi would say no, but then Lexi says yes, because I think that a lot of things are pointing that direction, that this is some sort of distortion. Is it possible that Vanessa is out to get Lexi? I don't think so. I don't think Vanessa has Lexi on her radar. She seems unperturbed by Lexi, honestly, which is weird to me that you wouldn't, because Lexi's been from the beginning pretty focused on Vanessa. So that's kind of interesting, right? That Vanessa just seems to be kind of light about it. Or is it deeper than that? Is there deeper pain there? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, Lexi seems obsessed. It's like Moby Dick going after the whale. Did the whale have a name? The great whale? This obsession of like, I must bring her down, which points towards trauma, right? It points towards something particular that this is triggering for Lexi, which we could imagine, right? A narcissistic parent, a parent who was flippant about relationships. That's interesting. You could absolutely see that, right? If one of her parents was at least perceived by Lexi as being just half involved in the relationship, in the marriage, and that was a reason for tension and cheating or divorce or fighting or abandonment for Lexi, then you could absolutely imagine that without that healing or self-awareness, you'd be triggered by someone like Vanessa, someone who is very flippant. Flippant's maybe a judgmental word, but isn't really interested in commitment and is in relationships and involving herself in relationships, but has no intention to settle down. Now, the kicker is that Vanessa is honest about it. She tells people, presumably Xander knows fully well where Vanessa stands on commitment. Vanessa has told the camera, she's told other people, she's like, I don't know if I ever want to get married. I'm pretty sure I don't. I think she's even definitive said, I know I don't want to get married. I know I don't want to settle down. I get bored. I don't like that confinement. And, if you're Xander, you could say that sucks. And you could be hurt by that. You'd be like, well, how come you don't? But you can't fault Vanessa for just being that way and knowing that about herself. Now, is there something, as I've hypothesized before, is there some sort of personality problem or trauma that is resulting in Vanessa having that assumption? It's possible, but there's no indication of that. And we don't want to just look at people like Vanessa and see like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. When the opposite, we don't pathologize, right? If someone, Xander, for example, wants to settle down, we don't go like, I wonder what's going on with there. That's kind of weird, right? It's interesting that only one side of that spectrum, we also like, I wonder if that's trauma. It's a product of our indoctrination into traditional relationships and configuration and pseudo-moralistic notions of what relationships are supposed to look like. And so anything outside of that norm feels wrong, feels suspicious. And so you can imagine for Lexi that something is she seems deeply affected by Vanessa. But if you just look at the facts, if you just look at the way that it looks to me anyway, they were together for about a week, all of them. And we can imagine that Vanessa had I think Vanessa was particularly triggered in that moment herself and was resorting to a lot of defensive self-centeredness and giving off the vibe that she's unaffected by other people, that things don't matter. I think things really matter to Vanessa, particularly the way Xander feels about Vanessa. I think that's particularly triggering. And loyalty, I think because Xander is such a loyal, seemingly good person, maybe suppressing their upsetness and their pain, but at the very least, there's a lot of unconditional love coming from Xander. And I think that Vanessa deeply, deeply wants that. Anyway, so when Xander seemingly was attracted to someone else, we saw Vanessa have a reaction and a lot of tears, a lot of visceral emotion, and then hostility, and you could argue abusive behavior towards Xander. So we saw that vulnerability. Anyway, you can imagine from Lexi's point of view, watching that or knowing about it, you'd be like, ooh, Vanessa's a mean person. I don't like the way she treats other people. Okay, but once everyone's matched up. And then, of course, seeing your loved one, Ray, be attracted to that, you're just like, what? And I wonder if another part of this is like, well, if Ray's attracted to Vanessa, does that make me like a Vanessa? I don't like that idea. Or it's a sub-awareness around that notion. It's like, well, if I attack Vanessa, then that really proves that I'm not Vanessa. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you think that she's out to get you?
Yeah. Really don't like her.
That's what's dangerous about her. There was an obvious shift in energy. You talked about it and it like put you in a weird space. And you have to know that. Like, I didn't want to talk about Vanessa so much. And it's just not fair.
Yeah, I was wondering about Mal. Like, at some point, if you're Mal, you're just like, why are we talking about Vanessa? It's kind of a non-issue at this point. It's unfair to me. And just more generally, who takes care of Mal? Does Lexi take care of Mal? And I'm guessing that okay, this is a stretch, but just to use it as a jumping off point, if Lexi is indeed a chronic overfunctioner and needs to overfunction to feel validated or normal or helpful or attached or worthwhile of people loving her or something, because often overfunctioners, they were parentified when they were children, or they were parentified in a way that they had to take care of their younger siblings, or parentified in a way they had to take care of their parents. And they learned that their only worth and their only safety is when they are in control and helping the underfunctioner. And when they engage in a relationship with someone like Mal, who doesn't underfunction, doesn't need someone to save them, then they don't know what to do with that. So they might actually try to do this, but then they might, because their configuration of relationships is always one up, one down, they might actually decompensate as a way of like, oh, well, you must be the overfunctioner, so I must be the underfunctioner, so I have to underfunction, and thus I don't take care of you. I don't have empathy for you. I'm not mindful of what you're going through, because that's my model of relationships. Okay, well, let's adjourn there. Tune in next time when I continue watching, and everyone, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really, really do. You do.